Hello and welcome back. And look, I know what you're thinking. Some knobber on YouTube is going to tell you how to buy cheap hard drives. How dare they? Don't they get sent all this guff for free? They have no idea what it's like trying to buy a hard drive or an SSD in 2026 with AI sucking all the air out of the room. Look, the reality is that getting hold of hard drives in 2026 is a pricey business right now. And although I have been sent storage media from brands, it has drastically reduced over the last 18 to even 24 months.
You know what this is? It's the world's smallest violin.
Ever since Chia happened, that cryptocurrency built on hard drives, it is actually very hard to get hard drives sent. But I have been utilising numerous methods over the years to get hold of hard drives, SSDs and RAM for the channel for a lot of the videos. And that's what today's video is about. I'm going to give you the 5 main ways that I do it. But please, you can skip to the chapters at the bottom if you want, but hear me out. The majority, like 95% of the methods I'm going to show you, this channel makes no money from. We use affiliate marketing on here. We use commissioned links to the likes of Amazon and B&H and AliExpress and more. So if you're going to go to those stores, there are links in the description to use and go to those stores. It costs you nothing extra and supports us. But the majority of the methods I'm going to show you today, we're sending you to websites where we get sod all. So trust me when I say this, these work. And before you take to the comments after this video and say, I knew all of those, what a waste of time. Not everyone knows these things. And also, there's nothing wrong with a good mental bit of tune-up. And also, this is for the whole of 2026 and moving beyond. Because hard drive shortages and indeed SSD and memory shortages, they're not going away. So let's crack on. This is probably the most obvious one, but it's the one that weirdly a lot of people overlook, and it is deal websites. Now, depending on where you are in the world, your chosen deal website of choice will differ. There are universal ones out there like Price Spy, but you need ones that are more tailored not only towards human interaction, but also a more technically minded audience there. Now, this isn't a universal, but if you're based here in the UK, Hot UK Deals to this day is still a great resource for getting cheap hard drives and SSDs. If you're based in the US, you can take advantage of something called Slick Deals. That is a kind of US equivalent of that. It's a little more text heavy, but I've seen numerous hard drive deals and we've referenced it on a few of our seasonal videos. Now, on a more global scale, if you are fixated predominantly with Amazon, there's the website Disk Prices, which can be sorted, by the way, to different regions of the world. They use affiliate commissions on that website, but that allows you to compare disk prices. But there's an element of prior knowledge and model ID that you need to use, but there's a whole bunch of filters there on the side. And if you're based in the EU, there's a website called Grieshaus, and that's another one that's based a lot on storage hard drives and SSD that you can take advantage of. It's quite big in Germany as well, from what I can see in terms of the deals that are covered. Outside of deal websites, if you want to go to an actual retailer directly, the retailers I generally will recommend in terms of cheap hard drives would be B&H. B&H generally has a lot more hard drive promos throughout the course of the year. Western Digital's own retail outlet, by the way, they deal with exceedingly low margin because they remove a lot of the supply chain. So the result is if you're going to buy a WD hard drive, it's like buying it direct from source and you can get some incredible promos. However, the real key to those websites is tailored alerts, because almost all of those allow you to create an account and set tailored alerts in terms of how much you're going to spend, what your threshold is where you want an alert, and ultimately means that you get alerted when a deal happens. So you're able to, rather than spend ages cooking and looking, if you know you're going to need drives in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months, you can set up those tailored alerts for you to be told about these deals when they happen, rather than you searching for them ad hoc. So we got the obvious one out of the way with deal websites. Now let's talk about used drives, but more precisely, recertified drives. Because here on the channel, I rarely ever recommend used hard drives because one, you don't know how they've been treated in terms of getting knocked around, that you may not spot a fault now that will slowly develop over time until it appears on the smart. Also with used drives, you pretty much invalidate the warranty. Even if you buy a used drive that's got a 5-year warranty, you can hit problems if, even though the warranty is still still supported that you weren't the original buyer. It's not universal, but there are examples of that if you can't produce an original invoice at the point of purchase because serial numbers are tracked. Now, recertified hard drives are a different story. These are technically used hard drives, but they are used hard drives that are sent back to the manufacturer. These are then retested. They use much more tailored and in-house native testing to check the endurance, the stability, looking for bad blocks and sector issues, and then they are resold at a reduced price compared to new products. But these also arrive with a warranty, often somewhere between 1 and 3 years. 1 is pretty much the standard. Depending on the class of the drives, it can go up. But the result is that you can get hold of recertified drives that will be cheaper and are outside of the global market in a way that you won't find with new drives, which have then got a trade-in value based on their model ID. It's not a universal. These are often referred to as white label drives. But again, I don't recommend used drives generally on the whole, but recertified drives en masse can result in some terrific bargains. If you're interested in getting recertified hard drives, the two websites I personally use to buy media for the channel, number one is Go Hard Drives, and the other one is Server Part Deals. These two websites generally have a great selection, and you can use other websites like Part Picker to get that along with other components, but you generally find with Part Picker it doesn't differentiate very well between recertified and not. So overall, that is what I would recommend in terms of if you want to get as close to new but not quite new. Unless you've already had a decent amount of time spent searching around or buying hard drives over the years, you've probably not heard of the term shucking. Shucking is when you get hold of an external enclosure like a DAS, direct attached storage over USB and stuff like that, with one or more drives that arrives with hard drives pre-installed, and then you rip that bad boy open and boom, you've got hard drives. Now, as good as that sounds, because you do generally find an incredible price per terabyte in a number of these, there are caveats and worries and things to keep in mind. Number one, a lot of the time, and manufacturers have become quite savvy to shucking, they produce the drive without the SATA connector on board, and they've pre-soldered and attached instead a direct adapter board that goes, a bridging board that goes into a USB port, and therefore you won't even have a physical connector to use. The second thing to bear in mind is larger capacity drives in external enclosures that you're going to get ready to shuck, maybe SMR drive, single magnetic recording, and although these drives are okay in single or even mirrored deployments, they are not good at all in larger RAID 5 and bigger scenarios, as the drive layout and the data alignment is overlapped and the drive needs time to recalibrate, and the result is with larger arrays, in the event of a drive failure, a large capacity filled storage pool, that can lead to multiple drives failing and the RAID falling over. Ultimately, it means that shucking has an element of risk, whether it is that the connector on the drive is unsuitable or that they may be SMR, but that is by no means a universal truth. And if you head over to data hoarders over on Reddit, there is often drives that they talk about there where they will refer to different drives that they have purchased and found out whether they have or haven't got different connectors or the drive inside. This goes back to that white labeling business I mentioned earlier on, but also here on As Compared To, we made a video about this, and linked below there is an article that we update over time with different drives that have been successfully or unsuccessfully shucked. So I recommend you check that out. Again, not dissimilar to the whole recertified thing, you are getting cheaper than traditional new drives out of the gate, but not without an element of risk. And also, shucking has become now so ubiquitous that the drive prices, much like bare drives, has also gone up. This next one is a bit of a neat one, and this is, you remember earlier on when I mentioned the deal websites? Well, you may have heard of something called Camel, and another one called Keepa. Now, these are price monitoring websites. These predominantly targeting Amazon, although other sites are available. These, you enter in the URL of a product and then it will tell you over time when the price goes up, the price goes down, but it will also tell you the history and the price of a drive. Now, traditionally I recommend these tools for the most part to know whether a drive is genuinely a good deal or if they falsified the price or it is a fake price where you can see they just increased it and then fake dropped it to make it have the appearance of a deal. I'm not recommending it here for that purpose. The reason I'm recommending it is to do with the infrastructure of people that sell goods online on Amazon. Now, you may have sold stuff on Amazon. If you haven't, let me teach you something right now. When you do list products, you will be shown on screen the going rate, the average of what other people are selling goods for. Now, this applies to large-scale retailers that have got shops on Amazon and also the individual odd home user that's just trying to flog and make a few shekels on the side. The result is, a lot of the time, people will list a product, see what the going rate is, and because they're looking for a quick buck, whether they are, again, a home user, some nobody or whatever, they drop the price. Now, they might have a knackered second-hand drive, they might be a, take the money and run individual, but the result is they affect the average. They affect the lowest price drive at that time. Now, I'm not telling you to buy that person's drive, but what does often happen is all the other retailers have got so many products, cannot manually check and balance every product. They've got thousands of products. So they have automated systems that calibrate towards other cheap drives. So if they're not the cheapest drive, they can have it so that their drive will drop down in price automatically to close the gap on a cheap individual to try and quash the scale. You often find suddenly, for a very brief moment, drives have a dip in price. It's quick, it can be for a matter of minutes, but you set up the alerts right, and you can find that a big store retailer, or at least a retailer with a very good reputation, will have a drive price temporarily mad low because some know-nothing individual has taken to the platform and listed drives too cheap to get rid. Again, double check you're still buying from a good retailer, but using Keepa and Camel for this method of price chasing can be extraordinarily beneficial. Now, you may have noticed up to this point, I have not mentioned Prime Day or Black Friday. One, because they're bloody obvious, but two, because they are not the only shows in town. And despite the fact that Amazon throws millions, if not billions, over the years at Prime Day to make it big, and Black Friday has been a thing for most of my life, thank you, America, I've got to say, there are other seasonal events around the world tailored towards and including technical items like hard drives that don't get anywhere near the same press. These include the following. First up, you've got 11/11, that's Singles Day in China. Originally, it was on Taobao, AliExpress and Tmall, but is now increasingly becoming more global. Then, continuing with China, we've got 618 Festival, that's on JD.com. Then, you've got moving out towards India, Flipkart Big Billion Day. And this is that alongside the Amazon Great Indian Festival deals. These are all just promotions that a lot of people don't think about because they simply don't know they exist at different parts of the year. In Mexico, for example, this one I only heard about recently, was Hot Sale. You can head over to Japan for the Rakuten Super Sale. Then you've got the Double Dates Festival. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, none of these are available to me in the UK or the US. That's no good to me. Well, a lot of these deals will be cheap enough to cover international shipping. These are not the heaviest items. You are going to still have to factor in your warranty. You're still going to have to factor in support and stuff like that down the road. And you're also going to have to factor in import tax. But, and let's face it, 2025 and 2026, import tax has been a hell of a hot button issue. Different regions actually have better trading relationships depending where you are in the world. So although it's easy to look at the big seasonal events in your region, do yourself a favour and look at some of these other regional seasonal events and check out the import rules in terms of value and quantities between these other regions and your own country. You may be surprised. Now, I can't add that last point without at least highlighting stories that have recently been circulating as people try to find deals on hard drives with regards to actually travelling overseas to buy drives. I think there was a story on Tom's Hardware, I'm pretty sure I'll link it below, I've always put it on screen, where someone looked at the price of a bulk hard drive purchasing in their own country and realised they could fly over to another country, have a night stay in a hotel, collect the points from their air flight miles and such, then buy a big pile of hard drives and bring them back. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't work. I am saying it is fraught with so many problems that could happen. Number one, import rules. You can often end up where if you don't declare those goods, you can get fined at the airport. Lots of countries and not so much different airlines, but different country rules will declare just how much you can take for personal or business use on a flight. That extends to cigarettes, it extends to hard drives as well. Also, import rules and taxes doesn't even take into account when you're buying the goods in that country and paying local tax as well. So there are lots of little bits in between that can be problematic in terms of taxation. And that's not even factoring in bloody logistics, because this 30 TB drive here, it doesn't do well if it's knocking around in a suitcase. You have to make sure it would be very, very secure from motion and general shock damage, but also different scans and checks that happen throughout transit. They're probably not going to have any impact on it, but electromagnetic and stuff like that, I would be slightly concerned en masse on a suitcase that's chock-a-block full of hard drives getting thrown around. These things are not light. So again, I'm not suggesting that's a bad idea. I'm saying there is plenty of hurdles that people may, maybe skip over. And that's before we even get into warranty, as if you buy a hard drive from a completely different region and try to get your warranty honoured, some of the T&C on these brands won't even play ball on that. But there you go, those are 5 key ways that I have purchased hard drives in the last 18 months in order to save myself and the channel a bit of bunt. I've linked to as many as I can below, but please, if any of the retailers that I've mentioned that you're going to purchase from are linked below directly, please use those links, because it supports what we do and allows us to keep making the videos, the guides, as well as NAS Compares, the website, the support network, the forums, the support pages, the works. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.